Panic is more expensive than patience. Have you ever heard more truer words than that right now? Like everyone panics, everyone's getting like their hair up. Oh my gosh, what's happening? And really, it's a game of patience.
Before we get started with the show, here's a quick word from our sponsor, Global Training Center. As trade compliance professionals, you want to make sure that your procedures and documentation are completed as correctly as possible to avoid any delays and possible fines. We provide a range of trade compliance courses that will fit your needs. From in-person or web training to recorded on-demand courses, we can train one or even thousands on your team through your learning platform or on our portal. We can even customize a private session for your team. Go to globaltrainingcenter.com to find out more.
Hey, folks, we're ready for another recording here at Simply Trade Podcast. It has been a good time for several folks that we're going to be talking today about a conference that I did not get to go to. I'm like upset with myself that I couldn't do it. And Lalo, if folks just to let them know, Lalo has kind of rubbed it in my nose a little bit.
No, I have not. There's no way I would do that.
No, it's seriously, it was great. So what was it like? I mean, from what I understand, Lalo, this year's ICPA conference, that's International Compliance Professionals Association, for those that may be just listening for first time with us. But ICPA conference, this is like a record attendance, was it not?
Yeah, it was. This year was, every year they say the same thing and we say the same thing. But this year, again, they did break their own record. Of course, when you're a sponsor or an exhibitor, you tend to miss on other stuff. Like Michelle, off camera, we were talking about how she missed some of the sessions and how glad she is. Not to take away her thunder. I don't know if this is what she was going to talk about, but ICPA tends to record, not tends to, but does record the whole event, and you have access for it to the sessions, even though you didn't attend. So at another ICPA event, and so we have Michelle Frennier, and the way she explained it, Michelle, you tell me what you want to say, where you're from, because you gave me 2 or 3 different entities. So I don't know which one you want to represent at this show, but thank you so much for coming on. But in general, she's a consultant that knows a lot about trade. So
It's about a few things. So yes, I am complicated, but I do have my own compliance business under Evolution Trade Solutions. So that is what I operate under. But I also do some fractional work for a few people that you guys know very well. I work with Bonnie Kirsch at Magnolia Trade Solutions. I'm part of her team for fractional help, which great. I think we complement each other quite well. It's been wonderful to work with her. And I also do some work in the tech space, doing consulting on global trade, specifically for NMB Solutions, who does Microsoft specific integrations. So kind of a niche thing, but tapping into my tech background that I really love. That's a space that I'm just near and dear. Having been licensed for 20 years this year. How I was 9 years old when I got my license. It was really,
I was just going to say, you probably were only about 9 or 10 when you got it then.
Exactly. And you were sticking to that. So yeah, this is 20 years license. So I do have quite a background of all over the place. A bit of a trade unicorn. I take that well. Yeah. Thanks for having me, guys.
Hey, folks, listen, we're going to have Michelle's contact information with part of the show notes. And, as we're going through, reach out to Michelle, hit on LinkedIn and as well. But if you have questions, whatever, she can point you in the right direction if it's not something she can handle herself. But Michelle's, you're such a pleasure to be around. I'm telling you, it's like, Michelle, I've just noticed that, and I can remember it's like when you walk in, it's like sunshine just all of a sudden in through the window. It's like, it's really cool. Everybody enjoys being around you. So, and your stuff. So that's cool.
That's the bonus, right? It's not a flaky conversation. I hope that's what I hope. Yeah. So the conference was bonkers. So many people. I've never had to text somebody to find out where to sit down for lunch. I mean, the room was a sea of people. It was crazy. So walking in, being like, straight back, what side? I mean, the place was monstrous. I think there was 1,000 people in person.
Yeah,
Like,
they were serving lunch for 900 plus 950 plus people. Is like, holy smokes, and the funny thing is that I always say this about ICPA, man, their meals are delicious. And it was like, how do they do that for 900 plus people? It's crazy. So of
the
course that,
magic of Disney.
yeah, exactly. Disney magic there. They had a what's his name? Ratatouille, cooking back there, going hard at it. So
Yeah. Well, the thing out of all of that too is it's the snacks in between the meals too that get you. It's like, if you go to ICPA conference, you're going to gain a few pounds
You
if
just
you're
have to
not careful.
walk everywhere, Andy. You have to walk.
We've already said it was big. What about the exhibitors? Were there a lot there?
There were so many, and so many in the tech space. I had done a summary every Friday morning. I send out my global compliance supply chain recap. Call it the evolution. I know, totally tacky. But one of the spots that I have is trade automation spotlight that I do every week. And I decided, because there were so many tech companies who were sponsoring and exhibiting, I was like, well, man, I'm just going to light them all up. So I grabbed all their logos and tossed them into my template and said, here are all the people you can talk to. So if you're in a space where you're trying to learn about what's going on, all the materials, if you attended the conference, are all on the web app for, I believe, like 60 days or something. I might be misquoting that, but an extended amount of time. So you can go and check out all of those different people, especially if you didn't get a chance to stop in yourself. And of course, they do the thing where you go around and you get your thing signed so that you can enter into drawings. And all of that is just a great way to network, see who's on the market, but it's definitely not all the people you remember. There's so many new people coming in, and bringing their services to the people. So it was a good year to be there in person for that. There was a lot of great examples.
Make a point to go by and check out every one of the exhibitors that are there, and especially ICPA is great. But any of the conferences, you need to check them out. Even if your company or your department does not necessarily have a need for that company's service at the time, you may have a need, and you go, you know what? I talked to XYZ, and that may be a good place for us to, come back around. So what do you think about that, Michelle?
Well, they might be your boss too someday, right?
Oh, well, there you go. Hey, I hadn't thought about that one.
Yeah, no, I think that's the beauty of what we do. And I feel like with my background, there's no other better example than showing from working in brokerage to in-house compliance to tech companies that do compliance and software solutions, back forth. There's tons of opportunity to meet people, and you do find yourself pulling on those folks. I know I had a wonderful time meeting up with vendors in the tech space, people that I got to meet with in person, the European teams at some of these companies who otherwise wouldn't be in an in-person. I'd be over Zoom, and it'd be early in the morning to connect with them. But we had great time just being able to catch up, talk that one specific thing that was harder to do over email, where you could touch base with them. I mean, in a small room, I was able to bop around and get all of these things done in a short period of time, learn about new technology, but also catch up with new faces, old faces. So fun. It was a really great time to network and put faces to names, especially in the LinkedIn world. You may interact with somebody all day long, all the time. You love their stuff, and all of a sudden you're like, wait, you're that person. And I had a couple of instances where people recognized me, and I was laughing. I was like, well, I guess my put myself out there worked. People recognize me. Must be my headshot looks enough like me that people come over and say hello. That's always a worry, right? So
Michelle and I were trying to remember exactly what it is that happened right in the middle of the
yeah,
of the conference.
And tariffs came in hot from Canada, and it was like everyone was buzzing. The whole place went like, "Did you hear that? Did you hear this? Did you hear this?" And yeah,
it was and then so everybody was talking about. Yeah, right? Exactly. Yeah. It was funny because all of a sudden all the Canadian booths were gone. They were empty because they were dealing with their clients panicking. Literally, we were sitting there. It was like early before noon, and everybody was gone from the Canadian booths, and we're like, oh my goodness. And we check our messages. Oh, that's why, because that's when they hit. I think you're right. It was a 50% tariffs on Canadian goods. And that was before the USMCA, override. I don't want to call it override. Exemption was also allowed or whatever. But anyway.
The things that I guess I also want to make sure to take a moment out to talk about with you guys before we get too far into it was that a standout for me about the sessions and how the conference runs in general. There was a wonderful sponsor who we all know and love, Cindy Allen, who was supposed to be there and couldn't be at the last minute. And I just wanted to really recognize sort of those MVPs that stepped in and just seamlessly made sure that the sessions she had planned went off without any sort of problems, and that, Trade Force Multiplier was still like banner up as a sponsor, even though she couldn't be there. So, hats off to Amy Morgan and George Tuttle for picking up those sessions. They were really great. It's no fun to miss out, especially as a sponsor. So it was great that everyone sort of pulled in. And that's really the family of ICPA. Like, I think that was happening like just like this. I was listening to the coordination and all of a sudden everything's covered and off they went. So really great.
That's a good point. Real quick, Andy, I was going to say that's a good point that you say that, Michelle. The family, that I want to emphasize that. It's funny because that day, when people were there, of course, to listen to all the speakers. But that day when they found out that Cindy's not coming in, it's like everybody knew. Everybody. It's not like who's Cindy or even if they didn't know her personally, like we do, because we do know her quite personally. She's an instructor for us and everything, even if they don't know him that way, they know of her. And because it's a big family, it's like, it's my third cousin, then, oh, darn, she didn't make it to the party, and what happened? And people were genuinely concerned. What happened to Cindy, so it was great. I'm with you, Michelle. Kudos to Amy and George that stepped up and like they went off without a hitch, like you said.
ICPA, you just it's a family, as Ann Lister would say, it's the family reunion you want to go to. What'd you see in these sessions here that would be was, I guess, really beneficial to you?
Yeah, great segue, because I had put together my top sessions, the ones that I just absolutely loved. And one of them was Pete Mento. I don't know if anyone caught that session in person, but I listened to it after the fact because I was not in it. But the buzz around the place, it was just everyone. Uncle Pete had the words. So to say what he said regarding your statement of what do you do and what happens when this is all moving, I wrote it down. Panic is more expensive than patience. Have you ever heard more truer words than that right now? Like, everyone panics. Everyone's getting like their hair up. Oh my gosh, what's happening? And really, it's a game of patience. I mean, I very rarely react to what's going on until the dust settles a little bit. I think you had a lot of conversations happening about that. People whose anxiety levels were right through the roof. And I was like, oh, I remember those days. I'm going to talk to you a minute so that you will calm down. Because people will like leave these events like thinking that their list of things they needed to do is so big and there's no way they'll ever cover it. And people get very, very nervous about what they hear. So it's important to kind of scoop those people up at conferences and be like, just remember how far you've come. Write down the most impactful things to your business and who you're going to talk to when you get back from the sessions. Remember, you have them recorded. Get the right people in the room, schedule a session at home, sit everybody down in a conference room or invite them through a Teams meeting, whatever it might be, and sit down with the right people in your company to let them hear what you heard. It's a wonderful opportunity to show off what you've learned, why it's important that you should be able to go to these, because funding's a thing. A lot of people are having to cut back. And there's conversations that happen in person that don't happen virtually. Now, Lila Landis does an amazing job coordinating like the virtual network to make sure people feel like included. But it doesn't replace that sort of side conversation you had with someone to help them out. Pete's session was absolutely crazy. He had some wonderful points. I suggest going back to look at it. it was the impact of global economy on trade, and he covered nuts to soup, everything that we're seeing, along with some nuggets about things he's hearing out there in the ether. Information from DC, people he knows, right? Enough to know that we need to buckle up. Things aren't over quite yet. So
I always, you just think of it with the soldiers in the foxholes. Sometimes you need to just keep your head down until the dust settles a little bit, and then come back and say, now what do we do? Assess it then. Don't jump too quickly. So
one of the other sessions that was just phenomenal was a panel discussion on key takeaways for global trade. Is the future of it technology? So they pulled in an amazing panel. And what I liked about it is nobody was pumping their own stuff up, hitting their chest, right? It was all a really wonderful calling each person out, saying, hey, can you offer some information on that? And so the key speakers there, I had written them down here. So Jamie Untied from Trabex was on the call. She has an amazing background. I couldn't remember the exact company she'd worked for previously, but she's been around a long time doing tech in the trade space. Also, David Moore, or Dave Moore from Vigilant Global Trade was on the panel. Todd Smith from KYG, of course, former KPMG, and Ted Lancaster from Alliance Drawback. So those are the panelists, and Joe Burks from Vigilant was the speaker coordinator for that session. So he kept things moving. And what I loved about it was there were some really great conversations around trade data, and everybody wants to be doing something, but many of the challenges that are out there is messy data, and how do you handle that, and what do you do? So a lot of really great little nuggets, and a kind of a fun fact: 65% of all of the trade technology automation is the house cleaning. It's getting the data discovered and looked at. It's not even deploying it. So it's kind of crazy that 65% of the work is actually in the prep, and that just understanding your tech stack, right? Having due diligence. Each one of us in trade has to start learning that these solutions are really in our space, and we're the human in the loop. We're the people who say whether what we saw is legitimate or not. And it is part of the due diligence for us to do that check. AI is not going to take care of that. It's not going to step in and do it all for us. Unfortunately, they still need us. They still need our dusty old broker's licenses. We're going to be good for a while, I think.
You don't want to get bogged down in, cleaning up data. It's you've got to get those processes fixed, so that when there is a great opportunity for your company to flourish, maybe again on U.S. exports and whatnot, that you're focusing your expertise on what it does, what it'll be to make that reality and take advantage of an opportunity, versus you're behind the eight ball and you're constantly, having to clean it up.
So having your house in order, having clean data, knowing how your goods are classified for export purposes, making sure that you have proper ECCN number, that you're filing AES in the times when you should. A little known thing that I think people forget that happens is, I think it was 2020, there was a signing of you need to file AES if your goods have an ECCN number and are going to China, Hong Kong, Russia, or Venezuela, regardless of value. And can you imagine if your goods are, let's say, a chip that was just generic, no big deal, right? No, it can just go EAR 99. And then you realize that your engineers changed those chips, and now they have spicy chips, and not the salsa and corn chip kind, the kind that have encryption and things that require, even if it is a low level ECCN number that's sort of under the radar of needing licensing, you may need to file those AES filings. And what a bummer if your website says your new technology and the export enforcement people kind of cue in that you haven't been doing your job right. So yeah, that's enough scary. I did have some other stuff kind of pulled aside that was really great. There was a session on Wednesday, of course, the last day. It's so hard. There's people traveling, right? Everyone's got their suitcases with them. But some of the really good sessions happened on Wednesday as well. So definitely worth a watch back. But one of them that I really enjoyed participating in was getting a seat at the boardroom with Bonnie Kirsch was the speaker there. And, such great shares, things from corporate strategy to turning your compliance department into a bit of a revenue cost center. So bringing money back in the house, which is important if you're in-house customs. People don't realize that we don't operate the same as other departments, but on the P&L, we can become, a line item pretty quickly. And, of course, the basics on risk mitigation and how to build a team and how to really get the respect internally. So great session there. Fun little story at the end. If you go back and watch it, we were all talking about how long it took us for our broker's licenses to happen after we passed the test. And I won't give it away on here. You have to go back and listen to it. But the way I got approved for my broker's license was unconventional. Let's just say that. So
hey, as we're talking through this, I guess, Lalo, I was going to ask you a question. Did you guys see a lot of questions as far as people looking for, training, obviously, on the different topics to help deal with, what was going on as far as the, how to get up to speed real fast? Or was it more career move type training or what? What'd you get?
We had 2 or 3 types of people approach us, and on the training, they're wanting to look at like the foundational type training, where how is an import done, or how to do tariff classification, et cetera, because those tend to just the foundation on doing transactions is pretty, it's a base. I mean, you need to follow all these rules and procedures, et cetera. But then we had the other kind of group that would come up to us and say, okay, I understand all that, but man, for me this is a moving target. Of course, and everybody's probably tired of hearing that because it's so obvious. It's the, like there's that commercial, it's a travel company, I guess, is Captain Obvious, because it's very true, right? I mean, it's obvious that everything is changing and everything, and that everybody needs to know or wants to know. The problem that they have, that people approached me, or Anik or Chris, because all 3 of us were there, was we get webinars, there's a lot of information out there where people are coming to us and telling us, this has changed, this is a new requirement, and this is what's coming down, et cetera, whatever. The problem is that there's really no heads down, like how to do it. Okay, so there's a 25% tariff on items coming in from Mexico. Of course, not right now, but at the time, there was 25% tariffs coming in from Mexico, regardless of it being USMCA or not. You were still going to pay that 25% tariff or not. Okay, at the time, of course. Remember, people, I'm just giving examples. I know now if your 25% will go away if you're not, if you are USMCA. But the problem was that they didn't know that. They didn't, okay, USMCA, well, why am I even going to do USMCA anymore? It's very confusing. So anyway, the nuts and bolts of what is coming down. Okay, now you told me that I'm going to pay 25% tariffs, but there was no really nuts and bolts on how to get it done. That usually requires 2 or 3 hour session versus a 1 hour informational session. So a lot of the stuff that they were asking us was that, like, is there training out there where I can attend? Unfortunately, these days, it might be a weekly training now because things change so fast. But in general, is there something out there that I can learn so that I can push into my procedures and make some adjustments to my SOPs or whatever, so that I know that I am going to be doing things correctly according to today's regulations. So yeah, those are the kind of conversations we had. And what Michelle said was very, as related to what Bonnie's session is, that was a third type of conversation. How do I get my upper management to understand that this is as serious as we need to, basically get that seat in the table, right? And we've been saying this a lot on the podcast. Sorry if I sound repetitive, but they say the more you repeat it, the more people will remember. But recently have been saying that you don't have a seat in the table, you're part of the menu. So, gotta get it done, right? I mean, so anyway, so yeah, those are the kind of conversations we had from folks looking for, on the trade side. Michelle had a lot of good points on technology. There's people looking for lots of help in technology as well. But anyway, so yeah.
So sort of to piggyback on that, a fact I heard during Pete Mento's presentation was sort of staggering how many of us licensed brokers, like what the demographic is. And 50% of brokers right now are over the age of 50. And 10% of the brokers are 80 years old. So what you were hearing was probably a lot of younger folks coming up, asking questions, maybe people who aren't licensed yet and want to be, or are looking for ways to better their certifications and be employable with some of these extra credentials so that they can be taken seriously in the space and so forth. So absolutely, we need lots more training for everyone who wants it. We need to advocate for folks to take the test. I feel like that's just not a strong enough force out there to say, hey guys, it's a wonderful career. If you have your license, you're going to spring forward. You do need people in those spots who have those credentials, especially if you are going to try to apply technology. If you're going to assign tariff classifications, that's customs business, right? You need to be a licensed broker to be giving out full tariff classifications and so forth. So there's a lot to be said for the training that leads up to that. Just getting people, sort of operators out there who are doing the good stuff and all the hard things. It starts at the lowest level of the company, has the highest risk to brokers, right? The release staff, the people who are doing that first entry, those people, I feel like there's a upskill that should be happening earlier in the process now that things are being kind of probably the most difficult it's been in my career, at least.
So then that would say 50% over 50, another 10%, 80 and above, whatever. That's a big chunk there. So what it means is those people will be retiring in about 10 years. Some of them, already going out. There's a great career path. And so to your point is that gaining that, fixing out what is it that you need to do to develop yourself, become proficient and develop those skills. And so that would be a great way to look at it longer term, because if you can get your license now, you're in some of these entry level or middle level positions. You get your license and have sufficient, another few years of experience. Now, all of a sudden, you qualify for some of the top leadership type positions. So good point, Michelle.
And you don't need to wait around. I got my license probably a year after starting customs brokerage. From transportation, went to brokerage, realized working nights at the border was not a lot of fun. And that there was this lady who had day shift and she knew smart things that sat in the corner, and she was a licensed broker. And so I sort of DIY'd my own need for that training. I was like, I'm not going to wait for someone to open up that training to me through the company. I'm just going to go take this test. I'm going to do it. And I did. And I feel like there's a path for that. The further you go, the sooner in your career, the better off you are. There's no need to wait around for someone to swoop you under their wing. I mean, of course, it's awesome to have, and I advocate for being mentored and learning the today. But the test isn't your everyday. The test is just knowing where to find things. When you're working out in the ether, the way you get it done in practice is not on the test. So don't be afraid of diving into the books on that.
As we said earlier, Michelle's all her information and contact. And I did learn that also. People love to check our show notes. So her information will be on there. You can reach out to her or to us, and we'll make the connection. It's not a big deal. And don't be afraid to reach out. Like several people said, I wanted to be on your show, but I just thought maybe I shouldn't. Oh, come on. You can do it. You can. And we met our super fan there. Did you see him, Michelle? Our super fan? He's not even in trade. He's not even in trade. He's a boyfriend of one of the people who are in trade, and she's like really high up in her company. They import automobiles from all over the world, very high end automobiles. But anyway, he was there. He had his own T-shirt of Andy and the podcast, and he's telling us his story and everything. He's an awesome guy. So we hope to get his clip up on LinkedIn so everybody can meet him. But he's a really cool guy. So, but anyway, I mean, he just came up and says, "Guys, I really love your show and everything." So anyway.
I got my Onyx sticker. That was my big one. I was like, I got stickers. I was going to say that about your booth earlier, that even if you stop by, you don't get the hard sell, but you get to choose your favorite character of the cast. You get to take home a sticker. So if you're all over the tops of water bottles or on our notebooks, we carry you around with love. So.
It is so humbling. Thank you so much for what you're doing for our show. We're so humbled by this and so thankful. So to all of that, we just thank you. Michelle, you're wonderful. Once again, it's just like you're that ray of sunshine. It's just so fantastic, girl. Lalo, I missed it. Hopefully I'll get to go on the next go around. I know I was got plans to do the Dallas show. So when it comes up.
Yeah, we for sure need to do that one. So anyway,
all right. With that, everybody have a great day.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us. Simply Trade is brought to you by the generous contributions of Global Training Center. You can follow the show and GTC on LinkedIn or Twitter and other social networks. Make sure you check out the show notes in the description for a full rundown of today's show with all the important links. Also, make sure that you share this with a friend and subscribe on your favorite streaming platform. We really like hearing from you. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to rate and review wherever you listen to this podcast. If you or someone you know would like to be a guest in the show or would like to sponsor Simply Trade or suggest any topic you would like for us to discuss, please contact us via email at simplytrade@globaltrainingcenter.com, or you can DM us on Twitter at simplytradepod. Thank you again for the privilege of your time. Happy trading. Simply Trade is not a law firm or an advisor. The topics and discussions conducted by Simply Trade hosts and guests should not be considered and is not intended to substitute legal advice. You should seek appropriate counsel for your own situations. These conversations and information are directed towards listeners in the United States for informational, educational, and entertainment purposes only and should not be substituted for legal advice. No listener or viewer of this podcast should act or refrain from acting on the basis of information on this podcast without first seeking legal advice from counsel. Information on this podcast may not be up to date depending on the time of publishing and the time of viewership. The content of this posting is provided as is. No representations are made that the content is error-free. The views expressed in or through this podcast are those of the individual speakers, not those of their respective employers or Global Training Center as a whole. All liability with respect to actions taken or not taken based on the contents of this podcast are hereby expressly disclaimed.